Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Foley, and I am with the vSphere Tech Marketing team. With me is my colleague, Bob Plankers. And today on Quick Bytes, we are going to discuss vMotion encryption and what that means to you. We'll touch a little bit on performance, how vMotion encryption works. And Bob, why don't you start with what is vMotion encryption?
What is vMotion encryption? Well, let's take a step back and what is vMotion? vMotion is, 2006, we added
point.
vMotion to vSphere. It was absolutely game changing. I remember looking at it and not believing that this could exist, that we could move a VM running from one place to another.
I remember my first vMotion.
Yeah, me too.
I did it,
sitting and laughing
and then
at
I
it.
ran into my colleague's office and I said, "Dude,
This
have
works!
to see
Oh my God,
this
this works! We're just sitting there giggling, a couple of my coworkers and I, because it's game changing. So what is vMotion encryption? That with encryption on the network traffic, or encryption of the network traffic as it moves. It's very straightforward. The vMotion encryption is simply just encrypting the network traffic as it moves across from the source host to the destination host. And it doesn't depend on VM encryption. It doesn't depend on any of that stuff. It does not need, let me put that in big blinking here, it does not need a KMS, does not need a key provider. It creates its own temporary encryption key, a nonce,
one-time use,
and one-time use. Throws it away afterwards. Exchanges it between the source and the destination. Basically, vCenter server helps coordinate all of that stuff, and same for cross vCenter vMotion as well. You can do this. It's all encrypted and all that stuff. Part of our commitment to data in use, data in flight, sort of encryption, and it's very easy to use. You set it up on a per VM basis, and it's by default it's set to opportunistic. So if both sides support it, it'll use it. At this point in time, everything supports it.
That's everything.
Yeah, and when you set up a VM template, change it to required. You won't see any difference. And you mentioned performance.
And you can enable it. You can enable it with, if you're into automation, you can enable it with just a couple of lines of PowerShell too.
A couple lines of PowerShell with PowerCLI. Very easy way to do that. Very lightweight way to interact with your system and do so at scale. You can set that while the VM is running. It doesn't have to be off in order to do it. So you can just gain that right away. And it's just an easy thing to check and set. And that by default.
What about performance overhead?
Yeah, well, that's where I was going. You had mentioned performance overhead, and that's one of the questions we always get about encryption technologies is what sort of performance hit will we take? And yeah, because people are thinking anytime you turn on encryption, anytime you turn this stuff on, there's going to be a performance hit. But all of the stuff is done with CPU instructions. It's all CPUs manufactured in the last, I think it's 13 years now, have these instructions built in.
AES-NI?
Yeah, the AES-NI primitives and CPU instructions. So the CPU takes care of it. And there's a lot more CPU time than there is network bandwidth. There's a lot more CPU time than there is even storage bandwidth, all of this stuff. And so you're not going to see any difference. Plus, vMotion, it does its thing. And so a performance hit, copying things across the network, you're not going to notice, And
if it takes 2 to 20 seconds longer, does it matter?
No, not really. Not in
No.
in any sort of operational sense. It doesn't matter, And so yeah, performance hit negligible, and I mean you can test it yourself. You could get a big VM and vMotion it around or whatever. If you see a big difference, I would be very surprised. So.
A couple of weeks ago, I was recording some video with Niels and our colleague here in the vSphere group. And we were looking at some of the cross vCenter vMotion work that's now in 7.0. And it's really, really slick. I mean, prior to this, you could do it via APIs and some scripts and stuff like that. But now it's all built into the UI. And literally live while we're recording, I went over to my lab and we set up a connection between my lab and his lab, and we cross vCentered vMotion. And I said, have you tried this with encryption? And he went, no. So I enabled encryption.
Yep. Works
just
fine.
Worked.
Yep.
Yeah, it works awesome.
It doesn't work like that in 6.7, but 7 it works. The encryption, all the encryption features in an encrypted VM works well as well. And so 7 fixed all of that stuff. These are not trivial problems to solve because we're exchanging keys between the vCenter servers and all that stuff. But being able to enable our customers to protect themselves and even just check the boxes when somebody asks, are you doing this stuff? Absolutely. It's easy to turn on, it's easy to use. You set it and forget it. With vMotion encryption, you just set it and forget it. Honestly.
Yeah, when I was doing your job, I got into a real back and forth with someone who said, no, all the network encryption has to be done at the switch level. And yeah. vMotion encryption starts from the host where the VM is running. Mm-hmm. Whereas encrypting at the switch level means the encryption starts once it gets to the switch.
Don't tell my network admins, but I don't trust the infrastructure. That's the whole point of this encryption stuff, is that we don't have to trust the infrastructure. And that's an immense amount of trust in a switch somewhere. It's compatibility stuff. It's locked.
That it's properly configured.
Yeah, it's a mess. Do it at the application
is it
like
FIPS validated?
FIPS validated, all this stuff. We can do all this stuff at the application level that we can't do, or we won't do, more like it. And not we, but, implementations. A network engineer couldn't care less about, some of the stuff. And because it's not their job. And, that's an application problem, as it should be, And so doing this at the application level, in this case, vSphere, ESXi, and vCenter Server, those are the applications. And it just takes care of it for you.
So take us home, Bob. Give us the 30-second spiel on why you should enable vMotion encryption.
Well, it's easier to list. The list of why not is way shorter. It's an easy thing to turn on. You can set it, like I said earlier, you can set it and forget it. Just set it on your templates, and away you go. And you've got protection across the network for moving your VMs, large and small. And all that sensitive memory is encrypted over the wire. No one sitting on the wire is going to be able to get at it. Yep, agreed.
Yeah. All right, Bob. Well, hey, thanks again for joining us here on Quick Bytes, and I'm sure we'll have another conversation about something else security.
Heck yeah, check back
really soon.
Yep.
All right, take care.